Hey, what is up guys, MKBHD here, and welcome back to your continued coverage of the world's most densely packed keynote, WWDC 2019. And I'm going to say that low-key, my favorite announcement from that entire keynote was iPadOS 13. You see, if you remember, there were a lot of complaints and feelings in my iPad Pro review and many others about how this is clearly the best iPad ever. It's incredible hardware, great screen, great battery, great chip, but it's still sort of held back by the software, by iOS, and it still felt like just an iPad. Well, fast forward a couple weeks till now, till that crazy keynote happened, and now we have an update alongside iOS 13 specifically for the iPads. It's iPadOS. Now, it's not an entirely new operating system. It's still iOS 13 for iPad, but this iPadOS directly addresses so many of the complaints and those features that it was lacking that sort of bring it up to speed of a much more impressive computer. So in a way, this software update kind of feels like it saves the iPad Pro for me. So let's break this down. First of all, the widgets on your home screen. So I never thought I would say that about iOS, but technically you do have these here. So at least on the left-hand side in a vertically scrolling list. But these are the ones that were over to the side of your home screen on your iPhone, but you can pin them right alongside the rest of your smaller icons, and they go a long way towards making it feel a bit more like a real computer already, you know? And I actually think a lot of possibilities open up with the widgets that you can put over there. They're always available. There's a lot of glanceable information and a lot of one-touch functions if you have some important apps up there. So I'm a big fan of that. And then there is the multitasking improvements. So again, a lot of this is learning gestures and things like that, and there's sort of a learning curve to them. But you can have apps side by side like you always have, but now you can have two instances of the same app side by side next to each other. So Notes next to Notes or Safari next to Safari. It's one of those things I didn't know I would like, but turns out to be pretty useful. And then of course there's also the slide over apps and the whole gesture system that goes with that. So there's multitasking between slide over windows and quick switching between them. And all this stuff stays in memory and it's always remembered. So if you have multiple apps and spaces next to each other, you can switch between those pairs of apps. It's pretty impressive. So I feel like this is one of those features that you could not use at all to start, but slowly start introducing them into your workflow until you get really good at them, and then they feel irreplaceable. And then, okay, remember when I said in the original iPad review, having a USB-C port makes the workflow dream seem like, you know, just plug your camera directly into that port or plug a card reader straight in, import, and then start editing your photos or whatever you're doing. You couldn't do that on the iPad, and it was a bummer that that wasn't supported. Until now, in iPadOS 13, you now can plug in a flash drive or plug memory in directly into the iPad and import into your apps and start working. This obviously feels like one of the features they should have had from the beginning, but now that it's here, thank you. Finally, that's originally what I was expecting when I saw USB-C on the iPad Pro. So now it's taking advantage of that. There's also this column view in the Files app that's starting to behave a lot more like Finder with the ability to quickly copy and paste files and compress files and folders into zip files. I feel like also a lot of signing documents will be a lot easier now that you can do this. So file management is much better. And then also desktop class browsing. So that was another one of my big complaints about the iPad was the inability to use several important desktop sites because they all treated Safari on the iPad like Safari on the iPhone, just like another mobile browser. So I was pretty impressed and happy to see full desktop class browsing now. So first thing I had to try was Google Drive. That all now fully works. It's not perfectly smooth, but it works, which is great. And then desktop YouTube and the Creator Studio also works. So things like adding end cards and updating descriptions and a lot of the stuff I would do on the desktop, it now all works perfectly in the web browser. This is literally one of the things I would carry around a MacBook Pro to be able to do because I don't trust doing that stuff on my phone. There's also now a download manager in Safari, so you can use it for sites like Dropbox and Box.com and Google Drive for natively downloading files. That's awesome for me because the ultimate team I play for in New York Empire, we put game footage all in this shared folder in Google Drive, but I couldn't download from Google Drive to the iPad to watch it offline. I could only stream, so now I can just straight up download it to the iPad and just watch it like a normal file. It's great. And then there's a bunch of other little improvements, so things like the keyboard. Anytime you're typing anything, you can pinch it down and it becomes this iPhone-sized keyboard, and you can move it anywhere you want and then type with one hand or do swipe typing. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but the fact that you can do that in one quick gesture is pretty nice. And also, if you use the Apple Pencil for markup a lot, another feature that's super useful is you can now use the pencil to take a screenshot by swiping up from the corner. Then you immediately are in markup mode and you can start drawing on whatever screenshot you just took. That is clean. And then the icing on the cake is another new feature called Sidecar. So if you have a Mac and an iPad, as the name suggests, it'll let you use the iPad as a second display for the Mac. So I saw this demoed at WWDC. It was literally 2 clicks away in the display settings, and then suddenly this MacBook Pro has a second display that's Apple Pencil compatible, and with the super low latency of the pencil, you can just start drawing and editing. I imagine this to be useful for artists and people that do a lot of Photoshop work and things with the stylus. I don't know about replacing those Wacom tablets that are so specialized that a lot of workflows use right now, but as responsive as this is and as good as it looked in beta, this looked really promising. Oh, and let me just say that the improved latency of the stylus, they said on stage that it went from 20 milliseconds to 9 milliseconds. I didn't know if I would notice that, but trying it, it is incredibly fast now. It looks and feels like you're actually writing directly onto the iPad screen. I don't know if they could even make the latency any shorter than this, and if I would notice it at all, it is super fast. So, does all this stuff take the iPad Pro from being just another iPad to being a sort of a computer replacement for more people? As you might imagine, the answer depends on what you do on your computer. But for me, if I'm not video editing on my laptop, the answer is actually yes. Pretty much everything I do in between desktops as far as mobile work, I can now actually do on the iPad Pro. And that mobile web browser being treated like a desktop class web browser is a major part of that. I also really like the widgets on the more compact home screen and the multitasking improvements, and all this stuff to me legitimately saves the iPad. So today, like I said, since I don't edit videos on the go anymore, I do it in between at desktops. Today, I'm taking my laptop out of my backpack and I'm gonna be just carrying iPad Pro. We'll see how long this lasts, but I really feel like I can do everything I used to do. I don't know whether to be mad at Apple for like holding these features back and then finally delivering them later to blow all our minds, or if I should be super happy for Apple for listening to our feedback and actually updating the iPad with all these features for what we asked. But what I do know is the improvements that they've made to iPadOS are stellar. I think when they do hit the iPad in their final form, because this is still early beta and it'll be a public beta soon, but when these finally start hitting people's iPad Pros, they're gonna notice, they're gonna be major improvements, and I think they'll really like them. I really like it. Either way, that's been it. Thanks for watching this video. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.